All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at knowledge check 24.5.1. So this goes back to this function that we created earlier on in the lesson. And what we want to do is take a few steps to allow the user to determine if they want to remove the missing values on their own, and then also provide some information, basically feedback to the user. We can do a stop, like throw an error, if the user supplies the non-numeric values for X, add a warning that tells the user NAs are present, and add a message that tells them how many NAs were removed. So we'll just go one by one through these. All right, so first of all, move the na.rm equals true into the function argument. So you can see right here in the range function, we have this na.rm equals true. What we'd rather do is allow the user to determine if they want to remove versus just automatically removing missing values without the user being able to control that. So let's remove that. And I want to add this as an argument. Boom. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say if na.rm, okay, so basically if that is true, then I want X to go ahead and equal X not is.nax. Okay, so what this line does is it basically says if the user wants to remove missing values, then we're going to look in, identify all those missing within X, and then reassign X to be only those values that are not missing. All right, so we've done that. So we've got this test vector down here that's got an NA in it. So let's go ahead and run this code and see what happens right now. Okay, so we see the last value is NA, and we've removed that. What happens if I say na.rm equals false? There we go. So now we have a problem because we have a missing value, and that throws off all the computation. But we've at least allowed the user the option to remove the NA. All right, so we've accomplished number one, but let's do some more stuff here to make this a little bit more robust. All right, so add a stop that throws an error if the user supplies non-numeric values for X. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to add, all right, let me just add some comments in here. Remove missing values if necessary. All right, so we accomplished that part. Let's add another one, and this is going to be make sure the X input is a numeric atomic vector. That's really what we expect the user to pass, is an atomic vector that's numeric. All right, so what I can do is add an if statement. If is not atomic or is not numeric. All right, so this is going to check to see if our X input is an atomic vector and numeric. If it doesn't meet one of those conditions, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and throw an error. Stop, and this needs to be, let's say, X must be a numeric atomic vector. And I can just do call equals false. All right. So now let me run this. See, it still works on our vector here. But what if I go ahead and now I want to add just letter A. So now when I do this, by adding this A to this test vector here, it coerces all the other values in there to be a character. And we can see when that happens, right? So if I look at my test vector, now I've got all these character values in here. When I pass that, that triggers our this if statement to be true, and we throw this error. X must be a numeric atomic vector. All right, so we have accomplished number 2 here. Now it says add a warning that tells the user NAs are present. So here's the thing, if the user, let's say, if the user specifies na.rm equals false, let's see what happens. We get these NAs, but the user's might not be too sure why that's the case. All right, so we want to add in a warning that tells them that there's some NAs, and that may be why we're running into this issue. All right, so how do we do that? So let's go ahead and we're going to say warn if na.rm equals false and NAs are present. Okay. So let's say if na.rm, so basically this is saying if na.rm equals false, then what I want to do is warn, paste, I'm going to say there are missing NAs, remove with na.rm equals true. Let's see, make sure I get my parentheses set up right. And I'm going to add this call dot equals false. All right, let me make sure I got my parentheses in here. Paste. Warn. That is, looks like we got them correct. Okay, so I've got this missing N. Where does this come from? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say missing N, and sum is .na x. All right, so what this should do now, oh, let's see, I missed, oh, that is why, warning. There we go. So now when I run this and I have NAs in there, you see we get this warning, there are 1 NAs, remove with na.rm, and then what follows is our vector of NAs. Now what if I turn my na.rm equal to true? See, I should not get this warning, and I do not, right? So right now I'm getting this warning only if na.rm equals false. Now here's the thing, what if I remove this NA in here and I do false? Now I get this warning where there are 0 NAs. So we may say, well, we don't really want to send a warning if there's no missing values. We only want there to be a warning if there are missing values and the user is not removing them. So what I could say is if na.rm is set to false and length of missing N is equal to or greater than 1. Or actually, if, because missing value is the count. So I could say if we have missing value of 1 or more. Now when I have that, you see, if I don't have any missing values and this is set to false, I don't get any warning. However, if I add in an NA, I get my warning. Okay. So I've accomplished that. Let's set this to true, just to make sure that this is running correctly. There we go. Okay, so we've added our warning. Last step is add a message that tells the user how many NAs were removed. Okay, so now we want to do one last thing. And this is if na.rm. So if this is set to true, then what we want to do is go ahead and say message paste missing n, which is going to pull that from up here. NAs were removed. So now when I add that, what we get is, it'll let us know that there was one NA removed. Now if I set this to false, I'll get my warning. If I set this to true, let's see, and I remove my NA in there, do I get a message? I do. Okay, well, what if we don't want to have this message if there are no NAs? Well, what I could do is just come down here and within this if statement, add another one. If missing n is greater than 0, or I could say equal to or greater than 1, then I want to have this message. So now when I run that, I've got no missing values, but if I add a missing value in here, then it's going to say one NAs were removed. All right, now whenever we add messages, we always want to allow the user to either silence them if they'd like. So lots of times you'll see this, you could either do quiet or verbose. And we could set verbose equal to false. So now what I can do is if missing n is greater than 1, or excuse me, greater than or equal to 1, and verbose, which means verbose is set to true. So now when I run this, we see that it silently removes our missing values, but I could set verbose equal to true, and now we should see our message pop up. And we do. One NAs were removed, right? So this is how you can start adding more complexity to your function, but in a way that provides user informative information when they run into certain errors or issues when executing your code.